Okay, it's Shayna, also known as Shayna Lines Designs. I'm going to show you how I use a provisional cast on to lead into a tubular cast on, which I use for either 1x1 ribbing or the beginning of some of my fidget toys. And so what I need here is my working needle. I need some waste yarn, and I need a crochet hook, and it's a similar size to what I'm working on. In this case it's a little bigger. I find that it works just fine. So I'm going to show you how I do this. What I need to do when I'm creating a tubular cast on, which will be suitable for 1x1 ribbing or a beautiful, this is a double knit edge, where it becomes this really beautifully smooth with rounded edges. I need to cast on half the required number of stitches plus one. And what happens is on the first row of the project, I'm going to double the stitch count. So in this case, I'm going to be working with 12 total stitches. So I will provisionally cast on half plus one, which is half is 6, and then half plus 1 is 7. So let me show you how I do it. I'm going to take my waste yarn and make a slip knot. I'm making it long enough that I can hold it in my left hand. And so then I'm going to pick up my needle with my left hand, and I hold these two together, and let's see, hold it up a little bit more. I wrap my yarn around both my needle and my crochet hook, and then I use the crochet hook to pull that loop through. So now I have one stitch provisionally cast on. I will keep going in the same fashion, and what I'm basically doing is I'm making a crochet chain that goes around my knitting needle, which is pretty neat. I'll show you a little later how this is removed. So let's see, I have 6, 7, and I like to just add a few more right here. You can do this on or off the needle, these extra ones. Then I'm just going to pull this loop through. What I mean by the extra ones is we said that I wanted to have 7, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 10, and so I'm going to take the last 3 and just 3. Helps if I actually count those correctly. So I have 7 stitches right here, and I'm going to continue to work with these for my tubular cast on. I like to leave this tail because it reminds me which side I need to pull on to unravel the cast on later. So I'm going to take my working yarn. I have this yellow yarn right here, and on row 1, I'm going to double the stitch count by adding a yarn over in between each stitch. Let me show you what that means. So I'm going to insert my needle as if to knit, and knit 1, and then I take my yarn and I yarn over, and I knit 1 again. I'm going to do that all the way across my work. It's a little loose right at the beginning, and that's okay. But what I'm doing is I'm adding this yarn over in between each stitch. So I'm taking my stitch count and I'm just about doubling it. What do I mean just about doubling it? So we had 7 just a moment ago. Now if I count the stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Now I have 13 stitches. I'm going to flip to the wrong side. There are actually 5 setup rows that happen before I can be working my tubular, before I've created that tubular cast on edge. So now I'm on the wrong side. If I look in right here, I have knit this stitch, and then I've created that yarn over across, right? So the way that I work these is my row 2 is slip one with yarn in front, knit one, slip one with yarn in front, knit one, and I'm going to do this all the way across. And so what I'm doing now is I'm slipping the ones that I've knit, and I'm knitting the ones that I've slipped. Okay, this will emerge in just a few rows. But that was our row 2. Again, I have 13 stitches, which is an odd number. Now you can see I have a little bit of space in between that provisionally cast on edge and my live stitches. Row 3 is I'm going to knit one, slip one with yarn in front to the last stitch. This is row 3. I'm on the right side of my work, and I know I'm on row 3 because there's the tail end of my yarn hanging out right next to me. Okay. And row 3 ends with a knit one, just like it started. Let's flip around to the wrong side and work row 4. This one is the same as row 2. Slip one with yarn in front, knit one, slip one with yarn in front, knit one, and I'll do that all the way to the end of row 4. I like this method for a tubular cast on because I don't have to measure out a long tail. Yeah, there's some setup rows, but there's some setup rows with the long tail version, and this way I find it just a little bit easier for my brain to comprehend. I'm on row 5. This is the last setup row. And so I'm going to knit one, slip one with yarn in front, all the way to the end of the row. I'm going to show you this piece flat, but I will tell you how you would make a little modification if this work were going to be in the round. Okay, so I've come all the way to my last stitch, and my last one, it's going to be a knit one. If I were joining this in the round, I would actually, in this case, I'd be using magic loop because I have a longer cord and a smaller stitch count. I would join these 2 stitches. I would join my work in the round and knit those 2 together. Because I am working, I'm going to show you this flat. That's not how this would work. So I will kind of get rid of that stitch in just a moment when I'm working it flat. That'll make sense in a minute. That sounded a little funny. I still have an odd stitch count, and I've worked my 5 setup rows. So I'm going to turn to the wrong side because in my example this is flat, and let's say I actually want I'm going to show you what happens to create a stitch count of 12 for this flat piece. So I'm on row 6. You can consider this either, it's row 6 on the wrong side, it's really the first body row, but now we're going to switch from slip one yarn in front. We're going to change all of our slip one yarn in fronts to purl ones. And so I'm going to work purl one. Oops, I'll show you what I'm doing. Purl one and knit one until I get to the last stitch of my 12. This is still kind of small, and I got a big long cord flopping around back here, so bear with me. I'm doing purl one, knit one, And then I have the last 2 stitches, and I'm actually going to knit those 2 together, which sets me up with an even stitch count right here. Now I've experimented also with different ways to do this setup, and this works pretty well for me. I'm going to knit a few more rows as knit and purl the stitches, and then I'm going to show you how to get rid of the waste yarn. All right, this is perhaps the most exciting part of the tubular cast on with waste yarn, is getting rid of the waste yarn. So I've knit a few more rows. I think I've done 8 or 9 rows. I don't know total, including my setup rows. And now I still have this waste yarn, right, which looks a little funky. How do I get rid of that? Let me show you. So what you've done, there's no need to set these stitches onto a needle. What you've actually done by creating this edge, you've formed that smooth edge around around these crochet loops. So what I'm going to do, it's really neat. I'm undoing the loop from my crochet chain, and then the way that works, I'm just pulling it apart, and then watch what happens. Sometimes I have to help it along the way. I wish it would pull out cleanly every time, but whatever. So now I have so now you've created that smooth edge. So that's that beautiful tubular cast on edge. We've created that by forming this series of knits and slips around that crochet chain, and anytime after you've worked that row 6, or if you were joining in the round, it's the first row in the round, first round in the round, excuse me, with the knits and the purls rather than the slips. Anytime after you've done that, you can remove this waste yarn. And so this is just such a beautiful edge, and it's nice and stretchy. It's great for mitten cuffs. It's great for the tops of socks, for top-down socks, and I use a variation on that for double knitting as well. So that is how to do a tubular cast on with waste yarn.